Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at this album here. It's by the Beautiful South and it's their album Miaow. So I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album and showing you my vinyl copy of it here and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this was the Beautiful South's fourth album released on the 28th of March in 1994. Now before this album came out, the band went through their first lineup change with Brian O'Conigan leaving the group and being replaced by Jacqui Abbott. Now Brian left the band because she took objection to some of Heaton's lyrics for this album on songs like Mini Correct and Worthless Lie, she perceived as being quite sexist, quite misogynistic lyrics, whether Heaton was always writing from other people's perspectives. He wasn't always giving his own opinion on things. Whether Brian felt uncomfortable with these lyrics, so she decided to leave the group the previous year, and she was replaced by Jacqui Abbott. Now now that she met the band I believe a few years prior to the album coming out, at a party, I think she was doing karaoke or something, Heaton was very impressed with her voice, so he actually remembered her, when it came to be replacing Brian, he got I think with his management team to track her down in a hometown off St. Helens and St. Helens and Alaska to join the band. Now also around this time, Paul Heaton's personal life, he was going through a bit of a rough patch, I would say. He was often depressed around this time, and it was the height of his alcohol addiction. Now also interestingly, this is the only Beautiful South album where Dave Hemingway doesn't sing any lead vocals, perhaps indicating that Heaton felt that these songs were very personal to him and that he should handle all of the vocals. There was also a thought again the band that this could potentially be their last album, because Heaton's initial goal with Beautiful South was to become a background songwriter, write songs for other vocalists. However, that never really happened to any great extent, because I think Hemingway was never as charismatic frontman as Heaton was. And was actually quite happy to play second fiddle to him. Now the original artwork for this album had to be pulled because it original copies of it had basically a load of dogs in a theatre all listening to a gramophone. The music retailer HMV made the band remove this image because they said that it plagiarized their logo. So instead they opted for this image, I think painted by the same artist. Quite a nice cover though, just the dogs in the boat there, quite a moody image there. I think that works rather well. And now, also interestingly, commercially, this album didn't perform quite as well as many of their previous efforts. It was the first Beautiful South album which charted outside of the top 5, and critically, didn't blow people away like the previous album 0898 did. They did though recover, the next release after this was the Carry On Up the Charts compilation album, which became one of the best-selling albums of 1994. But anyway, I will show you my vinyl copy. So this is a reissue of it here. Originals of this are quite tricky to get. It is most 90s albums, you have to really go for a reissue of it. But it's quite nice artwork. They just get the lyrics on one side and then a picture of the group, which is quite nice there. So there's Jacqui with the band, Paul Heaton, and all the other guys there. And nice labels on this one as well, nice sort of custom label design there. So yeah, that is the vinyl record looked at. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album songs. So there's 12 tracks in total, so I will score each track out of 10, and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album.
So hold on to what?
Okay, so it kicks off with a song called Hold On To What, which I think is a really, really interesting way to open the album. It's quite a slow song, this one here, quite different from many of their previous opening tracks, say Tonight I Fancy Myself or Old Red Eyes Is Back. This one's quite a slow song, but I think it works really well as an opener because it builds up this song so well. The different sections of it all work together quite evocative lyrics like on it about sort of holding on like to like a dying relationship. But there's also like sort of like metaphors, like sort of like anti-war like metaphors, as well as like attacks like on like the ruling classes, like sort of like the outro like off like the song goes, like Chamberlain had his paper, Jesus had his cross, they held on, we held on to what. So yeah, and I think a really, really great song there, great way to kick off the album.
I want my love, my joy, my laugh, my smile, my name.
And then the next track up is Good as Gold, Stupid as Mud, which I have actually got the 7-inch single for. Recently picked this up at a record fair like in Glasgow. And this is probably my favourite ever Beautiful South song. I just think it's, yeah, just such a joyous sounding track, like really. Lyrically though, it's a slightly like anti-religious song, like kind of about like wanting like the glory, like not in the next life, like but like in like this one. It's a great song. It's a great song. Like whenever like they do it live, like always gets like the crowd like singing along. And yeah, it was the first single from the album. Fortunately, only reached number 23 on the charts, but has gone down as a Beautiful South classic. Great music video as well, directed by the great Tim Pope. So yeah, really nice single here. Great B-side on this one, a song called Love Adjourned, which yeah would have been like another great song to have put on the album.
This song's one especially for you.
Next track up, the third song is called Especially For You, which is a more slower track. This one here, like again we return to the more sort of like melancholic side of the Beautiful South, and this one has quite a unique lyric on it. I think it's kind of sung like in sort of like the third person, like he's singing about this song basically, like he's sort of saying like only buy this song like if like you're lonely, and like there's a great lyric on it as well, like if you're working as a DJ, leave this record in its sleeve. This one's not for general airplay, it's for the day she leaves. So yeah, basically saying like to people like don't listen to the song like unless like you're like really sad. But yeah, I think it's really cleverly done. Like yeah, just a really, really great song. Like I love like the bridge section like in it as well, where I get like this like brass section coming in. I think it just works really well, and yeah, I would give that one a 9 out of 10.
Everybody's talking at me, I can't hear what.
And the next track up is Everybody's Talking, which is of course a cover song, and this one was kind of like a sort of like an introduction like to like Jacqui, like for like the band. Like this is what like I believe like they recorded like to kind of like sort of like give themselves like a surefire hit single, like so like introduce like a new vocalist like to like the world. Of course like the original one of this was done by Harry Nilsson, but I think this version is like every bit as good as the original. It's not like a radical like reworking of it like by like any means, but I think Jacqui does a fantastic job singing it, and like yeah, that was like the hit single like the band needed, reaching number 12 on the UK chart. So yeah, like Everybody's Talking would get a like 8 out of 10. Like I mean, like because it is like a cover, can't really give it full marks, but they do a like really nice job of it though.
Sitting on the prettiest eyes.
Next track up is another favourite of mine on the album, and it was another single, and it is Prettiest Eyes. And yeah, this is just a absolute classic Beautiful South song, I think. Lyrically was inspired by Paul Heaton's like aging parents, but more generally it's kind of about like a like maturing relationship, like so like an old couple like so like looking back like over old memories, and kind of like just about how like time like can leave like a physical mark like on like someone that's sort of like in terms of aging, like but like so like emotions like still staying strong. It's just a really beautiful song, really moving track, and I think should have been a much bigger single than it was, because it only reached number 37 like on the charts, which yeah was a bit disappointing. Also got a great music video like as well, like I believe like shot in Lisbon. So yeah, fantastic song there, easy 10 out of 10 for me.
To die with her would be a worthless lie. To die with her would be.
Okay, and then side one closes off with a song called Worthless Lie, which isn't one I generally go to on the album, but it is one which I always enjoy when it's on. Even though it stretches to almost 7 minutes, this track, I don't think it really feels its length, because it kind of like about halfway through, like about 4 minutes, it kind of just completely changes tempo, and like sort of it becomes almost a completely different song. Got a really good lyric on it as well, like about sort of like after like a relationship ends, friends. Like, they're both wondering like if like they will ever like bump into like each other like again. Like Jacqui sings out the line like "Our paths will cross someday" like really well, and I gotta say it's probably like her like best moment on the album. Supposedly it's also quite an autobiographical song, this one here, like because like Heaton like had just come out like off like a 5-year relationship, like so like shortly after like the album like came out. So yeah, like it could be like about that, but it's also like I believe like inspired like by like some of like Modest's work, like kind of like the ending like of it, like it's quite like Girlfriend in a Coma-esque, like sort of like that sort of like ending to this track. So yeah, I think yeah, Worthless Sight, another really good song there. We'll give that one an 8 out of 10.
So I turn to a life.
Next track up, which opens side 2, is another standout one on the album. It's called Hooligans Don't Fall in Love, and I'd say the song stands out because it's so different from the rest of the album. It's really got a kind of Manchester, like, so like dancey vibe, like to this one, like so like Stone Roses, Charlatans, like sort of sound to it. Like it was like, this is one which was actually produced like by like ex-House Martins like member like Norman Cook, like aka like by this time Fatboy Slim. So he gives it a really sort of like contemporary like 90s sort of dance flavour. Maybe some people would say it's a slightly dated sound, but I think that is a good sound like for the Beautiful South. And it is a kind of sound like which like the band like would return to like some years later, like on songs like such as Perfect 10 and How Long Does a Tear Take to Dry. So yeah, that one I would give a 9 out of 10 to. It's always been a favourite of mine on the album.
And the hidden jukebox plays us a song.
Next one up is called Hidden Jukebox, which for me is another good decent song on the album. It's just never been like a huge standout moment for me. Lyrically, it's about kind of music like being quite like inclusive, and like so like and like not showing like any like sort of like discrimination like towards like people like and that. Although it is kind of delivered like in like a slightly sort of like clunky way, like I feel. It was apparently like inspired like again like by like Modesty, this one, like some like off like his like recent songs, like including like Bengalian Platforms and Asian Rut, like which like some people like sort of like thought like were quite racist songs. Like this one like was sort of like Paul Heaton's like response to that. And like yeah, like although it is a good decent song, like when it's on, never been a huge favourite of mine, like never been like a go-to track, so we'll give that one a 7 out of 10.
But hold me close, it's me and you.
Next one up now is another favourite of mine on the album, and I think is a really underrated song here. It's Hold Me Close Underground, which I just love the production on this song. I think that this song just works so well, like sort of like the kind of, I've never really come across another song like which sounds like this, like to be honest. Like it's quite hard like to describe. It's sort of got like this kind of like propulsive like but low-key like percussion track, like and very sort of like echoey, like sort of like washed out vocals. And yeah, I just think that it's like, I just think it's like a really good song. Lyrically, it's kind of like about like sort of like again like sort of like an aging couple like kind of thing, like sort of like continuing like to like love each other like into like old age, like after death. But yeah, really good song there. Like probably just for like the music like alone, like that one would get a 10 out of 10.
There's a tattoo.
Next up is another underrated song, and like again, like this one probably could have been like a contender for a single. I think it's a song called Tattoo, and yeah, it's a really good song. It's lyrically about sort of like people like getting tattoos, like sort of like the names like of their names like off like their lovers like on like their body like and that, like but like so like needing like to like live with them like forever. Heaton sort of gives it very sort of like sarcastic like sort of like feeling like to like this sort of like he sings like on like the bridge of it, like when they stick that needle in me, I hope they spell you bastard right. And so yeah, it's a slightly funny song this one here, but I do think that like underlying it there is this sort of sense like of like something's like not going quite right like with like this guy like sort of singing it, like again possibly like about the end like off like his like 5-year like relationship. So yeah, that one would get a 9 out of 10. Yeah, another real favourite of mine on the album.
It's me left with a baby and a seed.
And then the last two tracks, unfortunately for me, are the weakest ones on the album. This album really doesn't end too great. First of those is Mini Correct, which was the song like which made like Brian O'Connor leave the band. It's basically about sex, like and like sort of like the consequence like of it. Like Jacqui sings like "So it's me left with a baby" like on it. Quite sort of controversial lyrics. Like I certainly think that he like was sort of like not writing this like from like his own like opinions like and viewpoints. certainly trying to like inhabit like sort of like a kind of like sex crazed like sort of like guy, like, but yeah, like it's sort of like it's quite dark, like some of like the lyrics like on this one here, like it says like I told them that I'd hurt them if it really turns them on. So yeah, for me, not a really good song. I do sort of like struggle like with this song here. So yeah, Mini Corrects there would get a 6 out of 10. And then the last track though I think is a little bit worse than that, like even it's a song called Puppy, and I read that this one was kind of Heaton trying to do a sort of REM like style song, but it really sounds nothing like REM, like for me. Like it's a kind of like anti-war song, this one here, like Heaton sings on it like the rulers always laugh at a video bloodbath. Kind of reminds me a lot of like Roger Waters like sort of like material, like it's sort of like anti-war, like sort of like the Final Cut like kind of like albums and that. Like I would say the B-sides like Love and Jones like would have been a much better closing song on the album, like, and like of course like would have like at least given the album like a Dave Hemingway lead vocal performance. So yeah, I think this album like doesn't end too great. Poppy would only get a 5 out of 10 for me. But overall though, this album would score 84%, so I do think for the most part this is a really great album. I think it's a good balance of kind of sort of soul-wrenching like lyrics, but also for the most part quite upbeat like sort of like arrangements, but it's always like, even like on like the slower tracks, always really like melodic. And although Heaton like was going through like quite a hard time like during the making of this album, like he's able to sort of like pour like a lot of like the anguish like into really great songs, like sort of like without the help like of like songwriting partner like Dave Rothery. They sort of like they really like managed like to create like some of the Beautiful South's best songs on here. I think a great shout out like has to go out to producer John Kelly, because all these songs are quite different like sort of like sounds to them. Like it's very easy like for like an album like to sort of like find like its groove, like find like its sweet spot like and like the band like not to really like deviate from that. Like whether here like they also like going all over the shop, like with so like some songs like very keyboard heavy, like other ones like a bit more kind of like synthesizer like sort of sounds, like stuff like Hold Me Close, like to more kind of like string arrangements like stuff like Mini Correct, like like Worthless Lie. So yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on like on this album, like a lot of different sounds, and I think that even though it wasn't a huge seller like for the band, I didn't get like a lot of like notice like at the time, I do think this is probably the best all-round effort here. So yeah, that's been my review of Miaow by The Beautiful South. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.